All right, welcome back. We are Game 3004. That's Mobile Game Dev 2 in the winter 2022 semester at George Brown, and it's week 7, part 2 of our broadcasts and presentations and all that kind of stuff. Again, where we're sitting at the bottom of semester for those people who didn't make it to Tuesday. Next week is our mid-semester break, and we released the alpha release details. This week, we talked about that on Tuesday, so please take a look at some of those things we discussed. So things that we're doing, mid-semester checkpoint is starting today. Again, like Tuesday, today is the last day. And then a couple things that are due this week are the 7th weekly report and the 2nd peer review. And of course, your mid-semester checkpoint stuff, all your details, which is what I failed to put up here. Mid-semester checkpoint release details. That's all due on Sunday, if I'm not wrong. So that's all the stuff that's due. And without further ado, I don't want to belabor everything talking about this stuff again. Let's let Sam do his presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'll let Sam do his thing. All right, Sam, whenever you're ready, I'm ready for you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Tom.
No problem.
Try to get the screen share going. Let me know when everyone's seeing.
Yep, we can see it.
Slide. We're good? Okay. So hello again, everyone. I'm Sam Pollock, and I'm going to be presenting today on behalf of Team Fake ID. I'm back today to give you a little more depth into our upcoming game, Idle TD. And this time, I'll be your guide as we take a tour of the mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics going into the game. And after much preparation, we're ready to share a first look at the game as my team will show off some live gameplay to demonstrate how the mechanics are coming together for this weekend's checkpoint. So by now, you all know Fake ID, but let me reintroduce everyone real quick so you can put some faces to our voices. We have myself, Sam Pollock, as the producer. Morgan Etze is our software lead. We've got Eric Enos, the programmer extraordinaire. Robert Weimer, the baddest dude in programming, and Lucas Dunster is our designer. During our last presentation, we asked a question. We said, what if you could take some of the best elements of beloved mobile genres and synthesize them into a game designed from the ground up to offer familiar gameplay with just the right mix of fresh? We said, what if it had the best bits of a tower defense, the intoxicating satisfaction of watching your arsenal of towers taking on waves of invaders? Then we asked, what if you could include the fun of a city builder, that fastidious planning phase and resource management that keeps your mind working? So that was sounding pretty good. But then we asked, what if you could add the mix of hands-on and hands-off from an idle game, that uniquely rewarding and relaxing joy of watching the numbers go up? But we're not just back to ask that question again. This time we brought answers. Join me for this look at Fake ID's tower defense game, Idle TD. I'm going to describe the play session of Idle Tower Defense to give you a sense of what the completed game will be like to play. So you open up Idle TD and you start on a large map that is mostly open except for a looping path in the center. On this path, there's a goblin hunt, spawning waves of goblins at regular intervals. But good news, these goblins aren't here to attack you. Instead, they walk circles around the path. This is where you come in. You've got just enough gold and stone to build a couple of our arrow towers. You tap the build menu, select a few towers, and you place them on the loop to hit the goblins every lap. Then you enjoy the benefits as the gold and EXP start rolling in. Now, you've collected enough gold to build a few more towers. You do so, and now you're dispatching the goblins even quicker than ever, earning gold and XP faster than before. Before you know it, you've earned a level up, offering the opportunity to add another goblin spawner to the map. A few moments of careful road building later, the new goblin spawner is pumping out more goblins, and your arrow towers can't even keep up. Next, you'll be building cannon towers to destroy the growing crowds. You'll be building ice towers to keep speedy ghouls in range of your strongest towers. And you'll be maintaining a network of mining towers to collect more resources for upgrading your towers. And finally, most importantly, you're building up enough fortifications to take down the Surge, an enormous wave of enemies from all spawners on the map simultaneously. You can destroy the enemies from the Surge in time and earn huge rewards, which will speed up your progress even further. But if you can't deal enough damage, the Surge will dissipate, and you'll need to reinforce for next time to earn that big payout. Now, why don't we take a closer look at some of these moving parts to get a better sense of how this is all coming together. So this network of roads I describe is the core of your tower defense layout. The roads are how you route the enemy's movement, so carefully lay out the roads to send them right into the range of your strongest towers. Then we have multiple resources, which are gathered at different rates, and it's one of the main pillars of our game design. Here we took inspiration from a situation we've been describing as the hot dog bun paradox, because hot dogs come in packs of 10, and hot dog buns, however, are purchased by the dozen. This means after matching each hot dog with a bun, you've got 2 remaining buns. And what do you do with 2 hot dog buns? Well, you better buy another package of hot dogs. So now you have 8 leftover dogs, and the cycle repeats. So we want to reproduce that pattern by granting player access to different resources earned from different sources at different rates. Gold, the first resource, is dropped by defeating enemies. It requires a player to tap on it to collect it. Then we have stone and crystal, which are mined from resource nodes on the map and require the player to build roads and drill towers. Finally, there's EXP, which is earned for defeating enemies. By offering these resources, the player will go through different variations of surplus and scarcity. So maybe they have a lot of stone, but very little gold, and so they choose to build a lot of cannon towers. And if instead they had lots of gold, but very little stone, you might build 1 cannon tower and then upgrade it a lot. And then finally, maybe you have a lot of crystal and very little stone, so maybe it's time to build ice towers around each of your damage dealing towers, so you can spend your crystal and slow your enemies and give the opportunity for the damage dealing towers that you do have to have more uptime and to deal more damage to earn you more XP. That XP goes towards our level up system, and it's awarded to the player after they reach experience thresholds. But in our game, the leveling up doesn't increase your damage or health directly. Instead, each level up grants you the opportunity to choose what to add to the map between enemy spawners and resource nodes. So here the player has a choice between different opportunities to earn more progress. So maybe your towers are so strong that you need more enemies on the map to destroy, but you have to weigh your options, because instead, maybe another crystal mine would be an investment in the long term that could help you out even more. So every step of the way, the player's evaluating their strategy to best meet their goals for progress. And so we've got those enemy spawners that we mentioned, which are dropped onto the map after the player chooses them after level up. Different spawner types generate different enemies, and each of those enemies have their own traits and weaknesses and spawn rates. So for example, you might build cannon towers to deal splash damage if you have masses of goblins from a bunch of goblin huts, or you would build an ice tower to slow down the ghosts from a graveyard to keep them from outrunning your projectiles. Then we've described the surge, and this is sort of the game culminates in these periods during the surge. So because there's lots of opportunities in the game where you can enjoy some idle play. That is to say, sometimes you pay close attention to your strategy for a few minutes. You spend your resources, you collect gold dropped by enemies, you upgrade some towers. But then you can enjoy some idle time. You scroll around the map and you watch the benefits of your hard work as XP and resources roll in. But we want to complement and contrast this laid-back play with these periods of high action and high stakes we're calling the surge. So based on that timer, the surge meter fills up. And when it's full, resource collection is halted entirely. So you can spend all the time you want to spend the resources that you've collected and saved up to prepare for this big wave, but you can't just sit there and keep accruing wealth. Instead, you have to activate the surge and bring that huge wave of enemies. And then it was important for our game design that the surge didn't threaten a huge feel bad moment where failing to destroy the enemies resulted in a lose state or restart state. Instead, we have the surge representing an exciting opportunity. because if you've prepared enough and earned enough resources and built enough towers, you can overcome the surge and earn a huge reward of materials. Surge is supposed to be that periodic climax to the gameplay, like a boss fight or a final exam. It's a chance to test your hard work and enjoy the payoffs. So I'm going to take a quick moment and look at what we've accomplished so far. If you remember during our first presentation, I said we each have different roles in Fake ID, but at our core on this project, each of us are programmers. In practice, the team's done a really good job of this. We're breaking down our milestone into distinct tasks. We're handling our sections of scripting in parallel and then meeting up during the week to show off our progress, as well as team up on challenging aspects of development. So all of us have had our hands on with every element of the project, but I still want to give this opportunity to give some extra credit and kudos to each of the team members on their work on the assigned portions. So overall, we work together on the mini level. Since our game uses one big map and continuous play instead of disconnected levels, we have to start by making a miniature level. This could start as a testing ground for the fundamentals of gameplay on a short time scale. This is the culmination of our united efforts, and this is how we tested to ensure our solutions and implementations were working together and accomplishing our design goals. And the systems that went into that started with the tower types that I worked on. So here I was working on figuring out the tower behavior, setting up the types of projectiles and targeting, and aiming at and destroying the enemies. I built a system in a way to accommodate different tower parameters so that I could produce arrow towers, which fire directly at enemies, cannon towers, which fire at a position on the road where enemies are located, and it deals splash damage on impact, but they can be outrun by fast enemies. And finally, the ice towers to counter those fast enemies. They have a radius of cold that slows down the movement of all nearby foes. And then Eric was working on the tower and road building systems, which was critical for us setting up and actually playing our game. So with preparing for mobile controls in mind, Eric implemented a UI system and to take player taps and drags and use those to select and build towers and open the tower building menu. Eric also worked on a resource system to track collected materials for building. And then while he was working on that, he did the EXP and level ups to test progression and scaling. We have the enemy AI and spawning that Alex worked on. So he built the spawners for the enemies, he set up the prefabs and spawning behavior, and he set the nav mesh and AI to get the enemies working on that path. There was the full menu system from start to finish that Morgan worked on. So Morgan was our tech lead, and she got us through every conflicting merge challenge we faced along the way, which were substantial. And it's the reason the project came together was her oversight there. And on top of that, she was in charge of setting up the game flow, implementing the menus, music, and scene loading, as well as the pause system. And then we have the mouse touch functionality, which is how the player actually uses the game in the first place. And Lucas worked on that system every step of the way and got a few different camera modes working for both touch and computer interface. Now that we've had time testing and implementing this minimum viable version of Idle Tower Defense, we're eager and ready to step ahead and work on the complete game. The next steps we have in mind involve implementing some of the more advanced systems, which includes the tower upgrading and utility tower systems. We're also working on some of the idle/active mechanics like the tap to collect enemy gold and the towers which store dropped enemy gold. And then once those systems are in place, we're going to be working on game balance to ensure the gameplay is well calibrated for great player experience, as well as juicifying the gameplay, which is what we call it when we're working on more compelling animations, impactful particle effects, and eye-catching assets and movement. So I hope that's given you a pretty good idea of how the project is coming along and what we have in mind for its completion. Now we're going to take a look at it actually running, and you'll see what we have that we're working on for submission this weekend with our first playable demo that we're going to have available on GitHub for everyone to try out. start from the menu screen. Okay, can everyone see my Unity? Oh, yeah, you can see it? Yeah, okay. So in we go. You can check out our options screen. This is where we have the opportunity for the player to clear the save data if they want to start again. But the instructions screen that we'll be working on once it's in players' hands. And then you can launch the game. And so here we're in. You can see there's that core loop, and around the loop we've got 3 enemy spawners. The spawners are dormant here until you build your first roads to them, but I'll use this opportunity to show off some of the UI elements. So we've got the gold, stone, and crystal tracked at the top, which are what you spend on different towers and upgrades. An XP meter that'll keep an ongoing track of your experience as you defeat enemies, and the surge meter, which is a system we'll be implementing soon, but it's that longer game system that sets a timer for those big waves. And so I can click and drag here to make roads. And now our first spawner should be active. And we've got zombies coming out and onto the map in one ring circle. So I better build some towers to take care of them. So there's the basic tower, the arrow tower, which fires arrows at the enemies. I've got a camera bug here, but we can play through it. So we've earned our first level up. We can choose between a resource node and a monster node. The monster nodes will be generated in a radius around your core loop so that we can build that. And we've got another enemy to build to. So if we build some more map, we'll be spawning some additional enemies. Oh. We should be, there's possibly an alignment problem there. But so we can build another tower. We'll add a resource node to the map, and up there you can see another crystal. And still can't get back to it. I've built an ice tower there, which is slowing down the enemies as they enter that radius. So you can see there's still a few sort of booleans that are backwards here, but it's a live demo and a work in progress. But by this weekend, we hope to have it in everyone's hands, so you can give it a try and see what you think. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. That's the core of the demo and the presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions now, and the rest of my team is standing by on the Zoom call as well. So if you've got questions about particular elements of the implementation, we're happy to speak to it directly.
So what I'm hoping is that other people have some questions before me. We have some participants here. Anyone have any questions that they want to ask Sam, regarding idle tower defense, which is actually a very interesting concept? We had a question from Mark who asked, was there sounds for the game?
Oh yeah, we've got sort of blips and bloops for the towers firing as well as a backing track that I suppose when it's coming through, because I was sharing my screen of the application.
Cool. All right. I had some questions, of course. So in terms of, I like your design. and I wanted to talk about tech a little bit since we're here. Can we take a look at your road spawning idea? So when you put roads down, so if you kind of show me your scene for your main scene there.
You want to see running?
In game, yeah. Let's talk about in game because that's the stuff, right? So we're running, and then how do your roads work? So when what kind of tech did you use to make this work?
So Eric, are you in the call here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I'll let Eric do it.
Okay.
So, why don't I share my screen? Because that current build is having a conflict with the camera move and our roads.
Okay.
So I'll just share my screen real quick.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, Eric's got the latest map.
Actually, I've won just before, so it's a little bit weird, but the roads are a little bit better. Stan, can you stop sharing your screen for a sec?
Yeah, stop playing.
Yep.
Okay, so the build option, and you're able to select the tile, and then you can build off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like click and drag off of the selected tile, and it will select into that direction. So yeah. Any questions?
All right. So when you build the road, does it add to the nav mesh? What does it do?
So we're using waypoints here. So every time I build a road, it's adding to our waypoints, more or less. So it just collects all the waypoints. But right now it's in like a kind of a weird state where they want to only follow the middle road, so they're not trying to like escape the middle road. That's supposed to be like where our idol is.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept is like we're supposed to have like roads away from the circle, like we build away, and then we get spawners to come into the circle, and then they just go around the circle.
Okay.
But we were discussing yesterday about a better way of doing it. So we're looking into other ways of getting pathfinding to be more consistent. So we were looking into some nav mesh stuff. Yeah.
Because what you can do is you can bake your nav mesh kind of in real time if you want to, right? So
yeah, we were discussing that last night because I was like wrapping my head around like trying to get waypoints to work, but it seems to be like we should do it that way.
Well, it just, you know what? And the only thing is that when you add additional paths, you need a goal. Like you need them to have a goal to get to, right? That's the thing. So,
yes.
So for these things, for the enemies, because you don't have, it's not a traditional tower defense game where they're trying to, they're trying to get to a goal and destroy your base or something. So I think the challenge there is like, what goal do you give them? Right? Like, what's their destination node that they need to get to? And so no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think with the way that we've got where they're trying to reach that center loop and follow that lab, do you think there's can we combine that pathfinding with the waypoint based stuff we have in the center loop?
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, so here's something what you can do. You can make it so that you have instead of just an input, like right now, all you have is an input, right, for your hordes of goblins, right, or whatever they are, right, enemies.
Yeah.
So instead of doing it that way, what if, and this is just to help you with your nav mesh and pathfinding, you have an input and an output. So instead of the goal being, well, you have all these hordes running around, and hopefully you're going to get towers to get to destroy them. Maybe you got to get them before they leave, right? So hear me out for this. You have an end goal. Yeah. So you have in the original path that you have here. And again, I don't think it'll mess with your overall design because there's still going to be more and more goblins coming in, right? But the idea is that you have to get them before they leave. So the end goal would be like kind of a start node and an end node, just like we would have. And then they would get to that point, And then so for pathfinding, it would totally work. You have to get them before they get to the end node, and if you don't get them, they're gone, right? And then you keep generating more, right, as you go. So it's not going to stop the loop. You can even put it so that there is no road. If you instead of making a center loop like that, you make it almost like a U. So you start off at the top, you go around, come back, and then there's another house at the bottom, like let's say towards your, but yeah, right there. But we'll put your mouse down lower, or lower. Yeah, maybe over there, right, kind of stuff. So they go around, come back, and then they leave, right? And that's your main loop. And then what you can do is you can add additional roads, but with the danger that they're not going to go there unless it connects back to your main loop, right? So because remember, pathfinding, what it does is it tries to find the shortest path, right? So again, it can present, yeah, maybe pretty much right there. And so that's the way it could work. So the more roads you add, your job, and it becomes more like a puzzle as well, is how do I add more roads so I can have more of these guys on the road? And maybe you want to have a mechanic where you can remove parts of the road too, right? But you can't remove the main loop, something like that. Where
this is great thinking, Tom.
well, I'm trying to help so that yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to help so that you can have more of a continuous play, right? And then this way you can have more and more, like kind of a destination, a start and a destination. You can use your pathfinding. You can continue to bake mesh as you add roads, and then the roads become an additional mechanic because there's like so many things you can do, Sam. You can make it so that the roads degrade. Like after a time, the roads like stop working because there's so many people on the roads, and you have to rebuild the roads, or the goblins stop. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do, right? It's just a matter of how you want to take it and how idle you want to make the game, right? Yeah. So if you want to make it more active or less active. The other thing is that you want to, yeah, go ahead.
And we'll talk about that, and if that makes sense, I think something that's going to make the game design document as an inspiration for this game is playing with sand and water on the beach. It's like digging a hole and filling it with water, and then sort of chipping away at the sand and sending new channels of water to deplete that center reservoir. And if we handle the risk that way, that becomes an aspect of the gameplay.
Yeah,
controlling the flow.
Absolutely. It's just to remember that. So there's a couple ways you can handle it, right? You can handle it so you have, multiple destinations as well, right? So instead of having just one destination like we talked about, you can have multiple destinations for each of the waypoints, and then some of your goblins can go in different directions based on their like random destinations, right? So let's say every time you draw a road, at the end of that road, you'll have, once you finish drawing, or you can create almost like a path, and then the goblins will randomly choose, one of the destinations on the road, like almost like similar to the waypoint system you have, right? So that way they'll go in different directions instead of going only in one direction all the time, right? Again, I think it'll increase randomness, but it'll also give you a chance to show you that the same thing that you're talking about, which is the water trickle effect, where you have multiple, kind of, streams, if you will, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is you have to kind of, what is your plan for improving how the roads connect to each other? Because now I see that you have, roads that go left and right, and roads that kind of go up and down. But how do you connect them with an L, or like an angle, like a kind of a corner? Are you thought about how you're going to do that?
In our scripts, we have basically like a 2D array of integers, and it checks which, if it's a 1, it's a straight road. If it's a 4, it's like a diagonal. So I was thinking, like, once we place a road, we'll just do a check that's around that one spot in the integer. And if it checks like, oh, there's like a 1 next to a 4, so we can change that 1 into a 3, which it happens to be like a road that curves into it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, you could do it that way. But I was thinking also in terms of if you're connecting to a road, you're adjacent, the last road you're drawing is adjacent to a road that's already been drawn, and you're drawing to the left or right of that road, then you make your L there, right? So,
True.
example, if you're moving to the left, like how you drew that road that goes to the left,
Yeah.
So then the next slot, which is the next tile over from so let's say the bottom tile and that tile right there, right? You can see that tile there, the neighbor tile, which is the straight road, right? And this one is to the left of the straight road. Then you would just do the L to the left, kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
so you kind of look at the neighbor tile to create that route. And what I recommend when it comes to drawing your roads is I would recommend doing a little experiment, with an experiment scene where all you do is road drawing, kind of stuff to figure this out. So you can draw a road, and depending on where you draw, that's how it's going to loop. It's gonna draw the thing, right? So, but otherwise, yeah, some really great tech that I'm seeing that's here, and I see that you're already working with a mobile design, which is excellent, right? That's good. How about your key mapping, Sam? You talked about a bunch of stuff, but how does that key mapping work for you for your game right now, like the current game, the WebGL version?
So we're working on the key mapping functionality for the second release, and our goal for that is to complement the mouse and keyboard, or sorry, the mouse and click or tap controls. We're going to use WASD, WASD, as an additional way to move the map around while you're on the WebGL build. And we'll offer the opportunity for the player to refine those keys if they would prefer to use the arrow keys or what have you.
Well, you can do the same thing to move your build around, right? When you're in mobile version, to simulate the mouse, you can use multi-touch, right? So, for example, if you have two fingers on the screen at the same time, because remember, you can say for every touch and touches, right?
Yeah.
Then what you want to do is you want to count how many touches are on the screen, how many fingers are on the screen. And if your both fingers are moving in a direction, let's say, for example, you're dragging it down, right? As an example, you're moving your fingers downwards, then you can create that whole scrolling effect, right? That you're doing. It takes a little bit of work to do the gestures, but Unity supports multi-touch, which will allow you to kind of simulate what it's like to use a mouse. All right, so as opposed to a click, you know what I'm saying? When you press on a build and you dragging and dropping is also challenging in mobile because it's a long press, right? You kind of hold it, and then when you're holding it, you kind of move it across. So in your next set of builds, those things like basically touch controls and gestures are the things you should start thinking about in terms of how to incorporate them, because you have your game is around, kind of drag. You're going to drag your tower around. Alternatively, for your mobile game, you can just have a point and drop, system, as opposed to a drag and drop system. So you like point to your tower, it's active. Like let's say go to your build menu for a second there, Eric. The build. Yeah, right there. No, in your.
This one.
Yeah. And then so when you go there, instead of like click onto it, and see how it follows your finger, right? It's a point and it's not, you're not dragging, it's just following your mouse, correct?
Right now I'm dragging.
Oh, you're dragging. Okay. Well, you can make it so it follows your finger. So you're not dragging, you're just moving your finger around, and wherever your finger is, that is where the tower goes. And then you can do.
That's what we're using for this.
It works the same way. Your touch is just a location on the screen space, right? So remember, screen space to world space is what you're really doing, and you're using the camera to assist you, right? So it's exactly the same thing. You're going to do a conversion, world to screen space or screen to world space. One of those two, whether it's localization or quantization, one way or the other way. Then that's what you're doing. So it's the same thing with mobile, and you got to figure out that technology. How is that going to work when I'm touching the screen as opposed to using a mouse and keyboard?
Okay, that's good insight. I think with that in mind, we're going to aim to getting it running on someone's Android device as soon as possible. Just so, because I think there's some fine tuning about exactly the distinction between mouse and finger tapping. It's going to be good to know sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah, I would get on that as soon as possible so that you get so for your next build, which is your alpha release, and that's really due when you come back. The week we all come back from break is your alpha release, right? So you need to have touch controls pretty much in at that point, right? So so that'll be your next thing that you're working on, Sam. Otherwise, you know what, guys? I think there's a lot of progress that you've done here. I'm really, really happy with the stuff that you're showing. There's a huge amount of potential, and great job. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we're looking forward to polishing it up and submitting this again.
All right. All right, so let's get with the next group then. So just gonna pull this down and move over to this piece. So the next group that we have is Sleepy Dragon with Mark.
Hey, that's us. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
All right, let me see if I can share my screen real quick. Okay, you guys see my screen?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. The presentation here. All right. So
welcome everyone. My name is Mark, and I will be presenting for Sleepy Dragons on our game Possum Pagaski. Man, I love that name. Okay, so I'm just going to very quickly brief through the slides here, and then I will elaborate on more of the details during the demo of the game. So I'm sure you already are familiar with some of our team members. We have Anna, our producer, Jane, our game designer, Pauline, our lead software engineer, Minkun, our UI and tool programmer, Mariam, who is our gameplay programmer, and me, the audio engineer and technical artist. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our game. Our game, Possum Pagaski, is a third-person platformer game, and you, the player, is taking place in a dog's dream. You're basically playing as a dog as he's like, in his dream trying to go and fetch the mail from the mailbox, and he's embarking on this great journey through the backyard and the gardens and the front yard to get to the mailbox, defeating enemies along the way and picking up dog treats and biscuits. So let's go over some of our base gameplay mechanics. The game itself takes a lot of inspiration from some of the 3D Mario games that you probably saw in the previous slides. We do have all the standard mobile joysticks and buttons that you can use on a mobile device. The game, of course, is a platformer game. That has a focus on like the platforming part. So we tend to have like a more elaborate level with a lot of fancy platforms and obstacles. And we do have a basic saving and loading system that you will see in a bit. And there is we plan to have both melee and shooting combat, but for the time being, there's only melee right now. And there's also a very simple pickup system in the form of like dog treats, little dog biscuits that you can pick up to recover points. To get points and recover some HP. Yeah, let's go over some of the basic dynamics. So the level offers multiple paths for the player to reach the goal at the end of the level, which is the mailbox. And each path present their own challenges. A path might have, one path might have more enemies to deal with. The other one might have more difficult platforms to get across. And it should offer a pretty decent variety of platforming and combat challenges to the player. And with that being said, let's go over the game world and its levels. So we are aiming for like a low poly fantasy kind of vibe going on with like a very peaceful like nature based map, a lot of greens, trees, grass, water, that kind of things. And like I said before, we do have multiple type of platforms, things like falling platforms, tilting platforms, shrinking platforms, and of course I will demonstrate them in a bit in our demo. So before we move on to the demo, I would like to talk just a quick thing about our progress so far up until this point. So we do have pretty much most of our features implemented as planned. And instead of going over each and every one of them, since you will see it during a demo, I will just go over some of the things that we didn't really get to do and we're trying to achieve by the next milestone. So we do have some minor bugs here and there in the game. So one of them is in the camera, for example, which you will see shortly. Our UI does need some improvement. Some of the alignment's a bit off, and some of the buttons are a tad bit too small for mobile uses. Yeah, the camera does need some improvement. Again, I will go over this shortly. We also want to try to implement more enemies in the level, and maybe give them slightly better AI so they're more responsive to the player. And finally, we just want to polish up the the game world a bit and avoid any kind of like weird collision going on. But with that being said, thank you for this very short presentation, and let's move on with the demo. All right, so I would just very quickly, let me see here, stop sharing my screen so I can grab the demo. You guys are feel free to just hop in and check out the demo as well, but I will be demoing it. So yeah, you can just look at the my screen share instead if you want. So let me just share my screen again here. All right, can you guys see this? Awesome. All right, I'm just going to turn on the volume a bit here.
We can't hear volume though. Just so
yeah,
you know.
I just want to not distract myself too much. All right, so let's move on and start a new game. All right, so this is what our game currently looks like. You may notice some slight misalignment with the UI stuff. Our coders, our programmers are already working towards a mobile build, so the WebGL is slightly outdated, but that's all right. Most of the functionality is still there. Okay, so you can't hear it right now, but of course we do have all the basic sound effects, movement, background music, etc. The player can move around, as you can see here. They can jump, they can attack, and you can move the camera around as well. There is some basic enemies right now, which we will go over and let them attack us for the time being. Oh, all right, we're taking damage there. So as I said before, our pickups are contained within an inventory that you can open up. Right now, we filled up the inventory with all the biscuits, so we don't have to worry about picking them up for now. And we can select them and consume them for some healing. And yeah, so I'm just gonna move around the world a bit up, and there's also some, of course, some traps that you can hurt yourself in. We just place a whole bunch of these in the start level, so we can demo it very quickly. So while I'm moving through the level right now, oops. I would just very briefly go over some of the things that that I talked about before. Things like the camera thing that I was talking about, for example, right? Where you like I said before, the camera itself, it doesn't really track the player. No, like the player doesn't track the camera very well. So you just you sort of just like, as you can see there, still move in the same direction. This is of course just a minor issue, and we're looking forward to fixing this in the next release. And all right, and let's just move forward a bit and show off some of our level before I move on to some of the remaining part of a demo. So let's move across this bridge here. Oh, and this I have to just get this let everyone know that this level was designed by Mariam. Very awesome level, and yeah, I'll try to show off more of the level as we move on here. Okay, so like I said before, we do have multiple type of platforms. For now, there's only one I can demo, and that's the falling platform. So you can see there, it's falling off as I run across it. Oh, and I have to jump to get to this part. There we go. It's a bit hard to do with a mouse, but yeah, it shouldn't be that difficult with our mobile release. So that's like the first section of our level. As you can see, we do have a lot more planned ahead of us. But in order not to bore you too much with me going through, the entire game, I'll just very quickly fall off this level here and just show you what it looks like when you win the game. So I'll just turn the camera around. I did place a very sneaky mailbox at the back there, just for demo purposes only. And yeah, that's what you will see when you win the game. You can either go back to the main menu or replay. And that's about it for our current release. Oh, and we do have saving and loading as well. If I can get this to work, there we go. So it's saved, and if I load, you can see we do have a save slot there. And oops, all right, my bad. Okay, yeah, there's a little bit of an issue where the save sometimes loads you into the option menu, but your progress is kept if you just start again. But yeah, I think that should be it. And thank you so much for watching my presentation. How do I turn off this? There we go. There we go.
Oh, okay. Just give me
Yeah.
just a second.
So if you can put that back on. So so again, some progress. I'm glad to see, and so I got lots of questions. So if you can make a new game, go to your new game again.
Yeah.
So when you get to your new game here, your camera, you mentioned that the camera is exactly how you want it to be, or you don't want it to be this way. Like what?
We don't want it to be this way just yet, because right now you can move the camera around, right? But if I move it like this, for example, and I go forward, it won't go, like in that direction, but instead you just go forward like so, right?
So okay, so really, what you want to do is wherever the camera forward is your forward. Remember, camera has camera has a forward, camera has a right. You have a transform forward, right? And the transform forward for the camera would be your direction of your player, right? That's the way you do it, right? It's not that difficult to do.
We actually discussed this to our programmer for the camera, Pauline, and she has an issue where it works fine until you try to move both the character and the camera at once, because like you can move both on a mobile build, right? And when you do that, the character starts spinning uncontrollably. You try to move the camera with the movement.
So there's a couple things to do there, right? That you can consider, because basically your character can move left and right if you want, right? And it can turn around and all those kind of things, right? So your controls are the big thing that you have to think about. If you want your camera to move, or you want to unlock the camera from which is what you're doing, you're kind of decoupling the camera from the character in some ways, right? The character's moving in a direction, and you want to make the camera look somewhere else. And that's okay. I think it's neat. It creates gameplay where you can see things from the to the right and left, but you can also do it automatically, like if you want to. So so one way to do it is move towards your bridge over there for a second. Go towards that bridge that you have, right? So you're moving towards the bridge, and then as you get to a checkpoint, which is the bridge, you can do a bunch of things here. One, you can focus in on the character as they're moving across the bridge, and you can you add multiple cameras, where you can use Cinemachine as an example to look at the camera from the side view, right? So as if the character now is the camera now is the character's kind of walking around, and so movement across the bridge, and then change your camera to the side view so you can see what I'm talking about. So something like that, depending on what you want, where now, because you're on the bridge, it's almost like it changes automatically for you to this view. So all you have, and you disable controls. You can disable controls that move the character so they fall off the bridge, as an example, if you want to. these are some tactics. I'm not saying this is the way to do it. I'm saying it might be something you want to consider if you're moving from, one to the other. Again, the less manipulation of the camera by the player, unless that is your mechanic, is going to make gameplay a little bit smoother. All right. So it's up to you what you want to do and what your goal is. Like why you want to use the camera do you want to look around? Do you want to be able to see enemies or resources? There's got to be a reason why your character and your camera are unbound that way, right? So, think about it, and then I like your mini map, but it does take up a good portion of your screen. So consider having a control to remove the mini map. Maybe a control that's on the screen that removes it or not. The other thing I wanted to ask you is you have inventory in the bottom right, but plus you have the paw there and the sword. What's the paw? Okay. So again, maybe you need another image there, another icon, because it's confusing that the paw there plus the paw on the left are.
We're actually working on it right now. So
okay.
inventory just sort of like placeholder. What we want is actually this avatar that you see in the top left to be your inventory.
Okay. All right.
So you basically give them a little boop every time and it opens up the inventory.
Jumping also seems a little floaty to me, right? So you may want to consider increasing the gravity scale for the player or for the game world so it feels a little bit more snappy. It's up to you, but I think it's a little bit floaty in my opinion, right? So that's just me, just from a gameplay perspective. Okay, well, now what about the other ones? What about the arrow to the right there in the middle of your screen? It's taking up a portion of your view.
Oh, that's just for like showing the loose menu. I should have shown that. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just for that like demoing right now. To show the screen.
So it's just temporary then. It's just there for.
Yeah, just temporary. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So and the pausing is the same thing. Would you put it there, or where would you put it?
No. So we're actually working towards the mobile build right now. This WebGL is slightly updated, so that's why you're seeing it in the middle of the screen. It's supposed to be like to the top right, almost like next to the mini map.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if I would put it there. I think I might remember your controls, right? You have, and this is where the player is going to be looking at the screen, right? So think about when you're doing UI, right? User interfaces. You look at your screen and say, where are the player's eyes going to focus, right? Because you got a lot going on here, right? You got your mini map in the top right, you got your health and your progress in the top left, you've got your inventory in the bottom right, and you've got your little paw in the bottom left. So it's like the player has to look at the entire screen all the time, right? Like all over the place. And that makes it for the UIs a little bit like it's not centralized. I recommend something like more of your buttons. If you're going to have buttons on the bottom right and the bottom left, that's where your eyes are going to look, right? The bottom right and the bottom left. In your inventory, instead of having like an inventory, like a little inventory button like that, which takes up again quite a bit of your real estate, your screen real estate. Don't make it that big. Make it so that it's a button that, or like an icon that makes sense, right? Use an icon. You're using icons already for sword and for your jumping or whatever. So have a set of icons somewhere that can pop up, as an example, right? So, and in your health bar, there's a couple ways to do the health bar because you're using, this decoupled camera idea. One thing you could consider is a health bar that floats above the player's head. Not that I normally like to do that, but it only appears when you're getting damage. Again, we've had those recommendations before, right? But what I think you need is to declutter a little bit, right? You've got some great ideas, but it's just a matter of putting your controls in a spot where it's more intuitive as opposed to all over the place. Because right now we have like controls on the right, you have controls on the left, and it's again, think about the player's eyes. The player's going to focus in the middle of the screen where your character is, and it's easier. And this is kind of a thing physiologically for us to look down than to look up. Believe it or not, looking up is actually not as easy for us as to look down, right? So having controls, that's weird too. Look at that. Go down so you can see below your world. Yeah, so that's kind of weird too. So I wouldn't allow that. I wouldn't allow the camera to go down. You may want to constrain your camera so that it doesn't go beyond a certain point below something, right? So again, this goes back to our whole discussion about camera being automatic as opposed to camera being controlled, right? But anyway, it's up to you. Vince, did you have a? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for most Mario stuff, like most Mario 3D platformers, before Mario Odyssey, anyways, usually the player would only have lateral control of the camera. Like they would, Nintendo never makes it so that the camera moves up or down. At least in terms of 3D Mario games, that's something you could consider. That's at the mercy. It's at the mercy of your level design, though. So you have to design. So you have to design your platform smart and to make sure like the camera doesn't collide with anything and like hides it to anything. But yeah, that's a point.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but I think here's where I really like that. We got to talk about really good stuff too. Can you move across to your to the other level as well, like go across the bridge there again? So stuff we talked about stuff that you need to maybe fix or consider or whatever. But there's some really good things that you put in here, and some other things we need to talk about too. I like the checker pattern. I don't know why. I don't know wherever you got your assets. I think it makes it look really neat. I think it's very bright and all those kind of things as well. I do see that there's a level of detail that gets like it comes into view. I guess some of those platforms way over there are far away and stuff as well, and they don't resolve. They don't resolve until you're closer. This whole dropping off platform thing is really neat. I love I think the entire the way that the platforms are designed and all that stuff. I think are very nice. I think Mariam, you've done a good job in terms of the way the level looks, but I also have to say that the level is massive. And remember, this is something you're going to host on mobile, right? So you may have to prune some of it, and maybe use different scenes where you transition from one part of the level to the other. You already have saving and loading, so that shouldn't be an issue. And the reason why I'm saying that is you can compartmentalize your level into small scenes. It's one big level, but it's multiple scenes to kind of showcase different parts of the level as you move forward or backward, right? And you may decide you can't go back. There might be an area that, like, just like in when you play some games, let's say example Halo, you jump down into an area that you can never get back up on, right? Or you play Destiny, and there's a place where you jump down and then you can't get back up. There's no other way back. You have to go forward only. Or I'm thinking about God of War, same idea, right? Jump down and then there's no way to come back, And the reason why you want to do that is to cut off players from moving backwards. It kind of it solves some problems, right? Creates other ones too. But I want you guys to consider that, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you have a massive level that you're going to show on mobile. Things on mobile to consider, this is for everybody, are shadows, light, and textures. Those are the big ones that take a lot of memory and resources and kill your performance, right? So example here, you have some low poly models, which is good. That's where you're showing. Even your main character, I don't think is very high poly, which is cool. And but take a look at your background, your water. Like go near the water there. This needs to be fixed, guys. Right? Although it looks like it's not that bad, you have a lot going on here, and you may want to consider making this more a little bit more simplified somehow. And luckily, thank God, you're not making it move, because that would be really crazy, right? Because again, you're talking about draw calls, right, on a mobile device, right? And the more you got going on here, just take a look at the screen. Everything you see here is pixels, right? So you got to figure the more you put on your screen at the same time, especially things that are moving, you're redrawing those areas over and over again, right? So consider reducing texture quality on things like water, all right? Like consider it. That's all I'm saying, right? Like move it to another level or change the texture, those kind of things. Can you also take me to other parts of your level, or is it non-functional right now?
Yeah. I think it should work. Yeah. I'm just gonna move the camera back. Just We do have some slight clipping issue here and there. So this bridge
That's
might
fine.
cause a bit of an issue. Yeah.
That's
There we
fine.
go. It's yeah, as you can see, there's some slight clipping. Not that big of a deal. Okay, so there's that
Moving platform, that's
If
cool.
I jump onto it there.
Again, I really like the design. I think that blocky look and everything else of the assets you chose. This is weird. See the camera right there again?
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
so Pauline,
Right.
for since you're dealing with the camera, when you get to this part of the level, again, you may consider moving the camera so it's kind of to the so rotate the camera now so you see it from the side there. Like this, exactly. So the camera rotates automatically when you get to a spot to help the player so that they see that there's only two ways they can go. They can go to the right or they can go to the left, but they can't go forward or back. Going forward or back would be
Right.
death, right? So, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so something where it's like, it helps you. And you can also transition the camera instead of snapping to that camera. You can blend the transition using Cinemachine. Look, he's going to fall off there. He's actually off. It's actually off the platform. So even collision detection is also kind of interesting here. And maybe this part is too high for the player to jump.
Yeah, it's a bit too high. Yeah, like I said, the levels still need to be polished a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do have most of the level that we want here. There's actually, man, I don't know if I can show it right now. But there's like a town, which is like our final level where the mailbox is gonna be. Yeah, but I can't get over this one now. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, I can't show it for this demo.
No. Again, I think there's lots of potential. Like I like your things that we like. We like aesthetics. Aesthetics look good. All right. There's nothing wrong with the way your stuff looks. It's just gameplay. For me, it's gameplay, and it's remember the three C's, right? Character, camera, and controls, right? Those three C's are like what make or break your game, right? So, so consider those three things. What does your character look like? I think your character is pretty good. It's interesting. It looks like kind of it fits the aesthetic of the world, right? And the other thing you got to consider is like, what is the backstory? Why is Possum Pagowski here in the first place, right? So keep to the narrative, right, which will help you build your level. Like why the level is there. What is the goal? What is the goal of Possum Pagowski right now for this level? Right, those are kind of things to consider. So character controls. Okay, we know about controls right now, and controls how they, in your case, kind of are decoupled from the camera, and that's okay. But that's where you have to work. That's where you have to work your magic, because otherwise, if you don't do that properly, it's going to make gameplay difficult for the player. They're going to not play, right? Because it's like, well, I can't. I got to navigate my camera at the same time. I got to move my controls around. And if it's something that takes away from gameplay, remove it. If it's something that adds to gameplay, add it. That's my in my mind, that's how it looks to me. For me, that's how I feel about it, right? So other than that, enemies, again, your levels, I know you've put enemies in, but your level is kind of sparse when it comes to enemies and hazards, other than jumping, and falling into the on your death plane there, right? So there's things that you need to improve from a level design perspective as well. But otherwise, I think great progress. And does anyone have anything else to add before we move on to the next group?
Like the skybox and like the art design. Have you transitioned to universal render pipeline for this, or are you just using the standard Unity shader?
This should be just standard for the time being, but yeah, as we're progressing towards the mobile release, we're gonna change up the looks of the game pretty significantly.
Yeah. Okay. And And back on the thing with camera control, I wonder if you've like ever played like a little series, JRPG series called Nier. So like that game, if you walk into certain parts of the level, the camera actually does like position itself along some sort of like arbitrary plane, and then it moves like automatically alongside that plane relative to the character. So it causes some like interesting like shifts. So you could go from like a 3D platformer to a 2D platformer. It also depends on it also depends on rather if you like can keep the constraints of the character as well. But that's something that's there's a little tidbit, and maybe just a tad out of scope, but something you could consider if you can like perhaps like toggle a camera type to move along some plane and then toggle it back to controllable. It's all it's a consideration, but it's something that could add to the game, I feel.
Definitely, yeah. I believe most, if not all, of our group mates are here, so yeah, they'll take that into consideration as well. Thank you for the feedback, y'all.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Mark. Let's move on to the next group. Thank you so much for that, guys. Good job. All right. So the last group I think today is Roop, if I'm not wrong.
Hi. Yeah, that's right.
All right, Marat, if you want to start off. So we've seen some really, yeah, great. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mehrana, and today I'm presenting for my group, and I'll be talking about our game Bump and Jump. Here are our members. We have Youngjin as our amazing UI and tools programmer, and honestly, he did a lot with the dynamic traps for this sprint. I'm the game producer, and I take care of the meetings and organizing the tasks. I also have some programming roles. John's our lead software engineer. The gameplay, level, and version control all happen smoothly thanks to him. Abdul Hakim is our game designer. He created the platforms for our level and helped design it. We have Yaniv as our gameplay programmer who's currently working on enemy AI. For game overview, Bump and Jump is a 3D platformer for mobile, and it's all about Chad. Chad is a school kid who's lost in his imagination. We need to help him find his way out of this imaginary world so that he can reach the end of the level and get to the bus so he's not late for school, basically. And here are some snapshots of the level and the end goal. Mechanics and aesthetics. Bump and Jump is in a jungle setting with a cartoonish style. So there's like a lot of nature involved. And honestly, I'm glad you said you liked the assets from Possum Pegoski because it appears to be very, very similar. For game mechanics, we have character movement in 3D and jump. We have enemy AI that in the future will have complete patrolling, jumping across the bridges, and pathfinding. We also have moving and vanishing platforms, and there are needle traps, saw traps, 2 types of swinging axes, and fire and blade traps. We have a top view for the minimap with markers for player, enemies, traps, and pickups. And lastly, we will implement the functionality of power-ups to the pickups, which will be boost, invincibility, and throwing projectiles. Lastly, progress. We have to keep working on character controller and enemy AI. Save and load has just been started, same with power-ups functionality. We will also import some 3D models for pickups, and that's about it. We also have completed our inventory system, health system, minimap, sound effects, and basically all the UI and our end goal. So that's it for the presentation. I'll do the demo now. Okay, not here. Menu. Let me know if you can hear the sounds or not.
hear
Can
it. We hear it.
So I do not want you to hear much. So I'll do this. And let's start the game. All right. Let's see if I can. First try 0 deficit. Okay, no. All right. Let's do this again. I swear I've played it before. Okay. So this is one of our traps. And here are some pickups. The blades that you can time walking over them or just jump over them. And we have this moving bridge. And you can use the inventory items by tapping on them. And here's our pause menu. There is a vanishing platform here that you will fall off of if it's vanished, obviously. Here are the needle traps. There's a timer to the game that you will have to finish the game in that time for. And this is one of the swinging axes. And here is the second one. Oh my god. Okay. That was my bad. And these are the fire traps. And here's your boss. And that's it. You can replay, go to menu or exit. This is... And that was all. Can you hear me? Okay.
Okay, so so a couple things. Let's start with your menu. So some stuff you can fix if you go back to your menu. Again, minor things here in terms of buttons and everything else. You are using the same assets as the previous group, but very differently. So your main character is also, so let's start the game for a second. Click start. And are you gonna, do you have your WebGL build ready? How's it going with that?
Not yet. No, I will have it ready for Sunday.
Okay. So a couple things to note here. Similar to what I told the last group, your it's kind of weird the way your water looks compared to everything else, right? Your water is like almost like a fine grain, almost like it looks like noise from our perspective more than anything else, right? Like when you look at it. So again, it's a repeating texture that's pretty small, right? So recommend changing the texture completely or removing it and making it so that it's just like either just a little bit, you know, kind of instead of the way it's tiled. And again, maybe it's a tile that you're using for the water. What is it? Yeah. Is that a plane? Or what is it?
It's just a cleat.
Yeah. So again, things like I might want to, and it's an actual mesh, which is weird, right? Yeah. Again, I would that is an optimization right there. I recommend removing all of the water. Seriously, no joke. And just putting in, if you're going to use tiles, make them much larger. Tiles that are, let's say, blue, you know, as an example, like simple blue tiles with maybe, or a simple texture that repeats. You know, so you have a little bit of an idea that there is something there other than just blue, because blue can also, if it's just very, you know, bland, it'll look more pastel the way I'm thinking than everything else. Again, the assets you used are good. I'm not sure that I would use the shadows on the plants. See how the shadows on the plants kind of fade away and everything else as you go further up? I might reduce them or remove them altogether. That's what I might do. Your pickups, your items, I guess, are just placeholder right now, right? For the stuff that you're picking up is okay. Enemies, we only saw a couple of them at the beginning, but I mean, more hazards in your level than anything else that are triggered. And I think those are good. I think the hazards really work for me in the level itself. But what about the background? Like look at that background on the back there. So let's scroll up. Yeah, that part there. Is that actual stuff you've drawn, or is that actual tiles? What have you gone there?
Mountains are
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm not sure. Like again, I might. This is okay. I think it looks okay, but I'm not sure. You've got lots of stuff in the level. Again, just like I said to the last group, your level is massive when it comes to the amount of stuff you have in it, right? So try and reduce as much as possible. Your job really should be optimization. If you're gonna once you go into the mobile side, for WebGL, it should work. It should be okay for WebGL, right? But for mobile, the more stuff you have in your level, the more memory you have to worry about, right? So I would totally reduce in that aspect. Sorry, Vince, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, because like I was noticing like the frame rate does tend to chug a lot. I don't know if it just shows on my side or yours, but like with a bunch of assets, it's taking a lot of Unity's processing power, and then your game could chug like a lot, especially in terms of mobile. If you have so many like a lot of assets to worry about, you have to worry about like if my phone's gonna explode trying to render all of them. But yeah, otherwise, it's yeah, I like the previous group. I like the art style. The skybox, is that like just a custom texture you apply to the sky, or is it like a because that's not the standard Unity sky that developers would open up a project to see. So I like the skybox material that I applied to this side. Try to see if you can. What you can. An interesting thing you could probably do is like make a sphere and invert the normals in Blender and apply the material to that, and you can have like a more rounder sky instead of like it looks like a plane up top. But yeah, if you can make a sort of like sphere in Blender, invert the normals, bring that into Unity, and then apply your sky material to that, and you'll have like a more natural looking sky bound.
You can also use a procedural skybox in Unity itself, right? So, but we'll talk about that later. But good suggestions for sure. Can we go to the other parts of the level? I want to go to actually, if you play your game for a second, start your game. You had trouble in the beginning with the two enemies, right?
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. And 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 I mean that in the best possible way. I mean, I think that when you started the game, you even mentioned it yourself. Like I played this game before, right? And it comes down to level design, right? So, and again, guys, the great thing about only three of you, three teams being here is pretty cool. So see how these enemies are coming right at you, and then you had some difficulty in the beginning, but then there's no more enemies after this, right? They kind of disappear.
Just have it here for the patrolling that they
Yeah, that's fine.
The patrolling that they do, but other than that, we still need to work on it.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But I recommend for the size of your level, once you have two enemies like this, how they're tracking you at the same time, and how they're moving fast. They're fast moving like crazy enemies, right? Like they're you may want to either slow them down if you have two, and they're both kind of competing with each other in terms of the way they're moving. So this is like stuff that you can work on. I guess Yanov, who's working on stuff, he can work with you on making this better. But however, I like to tell you, like your hazards look great. Like that's the stuff that really looks good. The assets you've chosen are great and stuff like that too. I think it's really good. Character design for your character. Is there? Can you pause the game for a second? Let's go into that. Like, click the pause button there. No. In Unity. Yeah. In Unity. So go back, start your character. Let's take a look at that character in Unity. Zoom in on them for me, will you? All right. So let's go into that. Just go to your player and just and there you go. Okay, let's take a look here, Adam. So again, we never really see his details ever, right? Because of the way your camera is, and you can see that he's got a lot of details. Texture is something we're going to work on when we come back from break, but you can see that he's got a lot of details, but we never see him. We never ever see them. So neat. I like your character. It's just that a lot of it is wasted in the fact that your camera is far enough away that you can't see him. You know, we only see him from this side. You see what I'm saying? So again, you may want to consider a more interesting angle for your camera as well, instead of a dead on. So play the game now. Let's go back to playing the game. Yeah. Okay, and then hit pause again for me right away. Hit that pause button. Yep. Okay, now take a look there as your character. So see how you're dead on, but almost slightly at an angle. Again, you may I'm just putting it out there. You may want to consider, you know, kind of rotating the camera just a little bit from a yaw perspective to the left, right? If you're going to see your character a little better, right? So, and so if you go back, so if you go to your scene for a second, go to your scene now, and then let's look at it not exactly from there, not so much, but keep rotating, and go pull back a little bit so you kind of get that. So right now, if you have this is almost the view you have, right? And the thing is, if you just change the camera just a little bit, again, just a touch, and it may work, it may not. It really depends on, you know, testing and stuff like this. But otherwise, you can't see your guy, and a lot of his textures and his model is completely wasted, like for the most part, at least at this angle, right? Now keep playing. Go play the game again, so we can get to don't die. Come on, Mary. Okay. We said don't die. Okay. I know it's hard. It's that there's parts of your level that are really tough. See, like where you're dying for you, since you're the creator. Think about this.
Say that I'm not a gamer. Anyone else would not struggle. You need to also account for that.
The other thing you may want to try and do is like the end of that level where there's a fence, right? The end of this platform here, where there's a fence at the end. Yeah, this fence. Take it out, right? Because you're going to make it so that, because right now it looks like you're fenced in. Yes, they could totally like jump, but I mean, again, you'd have to maybe end it off in a different way than that. But at least this way, it gives a sense of, hey, this is where you have to go, right? I mean, yes, your level does it anyway. I mean, it's kind of it's totally apparent the way you go, but that's something. The other thing that I noticed is the sound effects for movement. It's like boom, 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 boom. Now that I'm not sure if that really matches the character. If you had a big ogre, then boom, 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 boom for his footfalls might be okay, but I would recommend either removing them or making them lighter sounding, right? Because it doesn't really match the player, the character that you have, right? I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's, you know, something that I notice as well, right? The mistiming is just a fact of me watching your screen on Zoom, I'm sure, but I think so. It looks like it's out of sync too, but that's probably just the Zoom thing. But when it comes to the actual sound effects, some of them are good, and some of them need to be improved. And the one that I think you need to improve on the most is your character footfalls that I'm hearing anyway, right? And when you go to your hazards, I'm not sure if you can get there. Maybe what you can do is you can pause the game again, start the game, pause the game, and then teleport your player to a different part. Like actually move your player around. I don't know if you can do that.
I can do that because I had to do it because I couldn't finish the level for a while, but you do it like this.
All right. Just don't save the scene, and then you're good to go.
There's like a long stretch of land there.
Yeah, there is. And okay, yeah, this is where I want to get to right here. All right, now take a look at this level of detail that you've got going on here. Go start play now. Okay, so before we saw, very simple, and this is like different assets here, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
These assets don't really aren't now they're because the way you're looking at it. Always 3D is always a messes you up, right? So there we go. Try that again. All right, let's take a look at this one, this part here, right? You hear him? It's like a beating of a drum. Can you change your sound from here, from this area, or no?
It's a little hard to hear anything right now.
Yeah. All right, good. So again, these are things, maybe you want to set the volume lower to start, as an example, because it sounds like it's pretty loud as it is, right?
Is it the volume or?
Change the volume from the sound manager if you go to the sound manager.
Yeah.
Oh, it's at the top. Yeah. And the volume.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So again, like you can hear it. It's like when the player is moving, like I said, it's like a beating of a drum. I think you have to change that up a little bit. I don't. Again, it's not like it's not a huge concern. I think swapping out an asset is just what we're talking about here. But okay, so very different looking assets, and just watch the swinging axe here. So now whole different thing altogether, right? And that's fine. But again, really high poly, or heavy texture for mobile. So be careful about this. Again, there's tricks we can use to reduce the texture size here, which is something that'll help for sure for your gameplay. But this is where I found, just like Vince said, that it kind of chugs in this area, right? Because of all the stuff that's going on, right? So maybe it's just your, again, the synchronization with Zoom. It could be that as well.
Yeah, it doesn't do it on my end.
Okay, good. So, okay, so let's move forward. Go more on this level. Don't get killed. Okay, there we go. All right, so like now, like the player can go in different directions. They can go that way and this way. So you've made it so that at least you just took the fastest route to get there. But when you go to the end, oh, there are. Okay, so there's reasons why to go there, right, as well. Okay, that's good. All right. All right. So that's good, Mary. Let me just let's stop for a second and just like stop right there. Don't move your character anymore. Okay. So take a look at the the UI now, right? See how your UI in the bottom has a pickup that's green, and how it's kind of against the background, right, where it's hard to see the pickup icon. Again, things that you can do is make those smaller. Again, it takes up quite a bit of real estate on your screen. So think about making those smaller for the screen altogether, maybe with a slight background. Yeah, those three things there as well. Like I said to the last group, maybe you want to consider making the mini map optional where you can turn it off and on, right? And the timer is okay, but it's kind of, you got the clock and then you've got numbers. So I'm not sure, that why you would have both. Either have, I guess it's just telling us, informing us that there's, you're running out of time, which is pretty cool. But when it comes to your health, I'm not sure who picked the actual heart, like a real representation of the heart. I would get rid of that. I'm sorry, it doesn't match the aesthetic at all. right? In my opinion, this is my opinion. Again, it's up to you guys. This is your game, but I think that everything else, try and find stuff that matches with everything else you got. Like you got a very cartoony style at the bottom when it comes to some of the things that you have. Like you got your shield and an arrow that's broken, and you've got a bullet. It looks like a bullet on the bottom. And what does those mean? What do all that stuff? What does all that stuff do?
On the person side.
And you don't have any of that working right now, right?
No.
Okay. So you have a lot of stuff that's on this that's in your game that like there's quite a bit of work that you still need to do for a lot of the stuff you have to do. But so I'm just looking at the interface now. Just if you look at this one screen of the interface, right, you can see like there's like a lot going on. You've got stuff on the left, stuff on the top, which is your level. For the level that level banner that you have with the stars, what's the purpose of it being in your level right now? Like, why are we seeing it?
Oh, is it supposed to be like live tracking? So it's like when usually most mobile games have like a 3-star ranking system that depends on like how efficient you are at passing a game. Maybe that's live tracking the statistics. That's my guess.
Like a
We've got,
progress?
like a page that,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when you lose a life, you also lose a star.
No, not yet.
So these are the things you consider. Like, why is it there? The question you should ask, Mirara, where you when you're doing this, and for your level designer as well, is why am I seeing all this stuff on the screen? What is it informing the player? Like, what's the story here, right? Like, I get the health is important, the top left corner. Okay, fine. The timer's going on the top right, which is kind of forcing you to move through the level, right? But really, the timer, and you have enemies as well. I'm not sure if I would. Okay, the timer's going to go to minus. But I'm not sure if I would have, like what the purpose of the timer is and the enemies. So you have a timing thing. So that's pressure. You have enemies that are chasing you, like Yanav just said, and patrolling or whatever. That's another pressure. You have to get to the goal, which is your reason for being in this level in the first place, right? There's a lot going on. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? And again, what you may want to consider is reducing some of these things and simplifying.
Those are the things that you require for the game, right? It's like you wanted enemies considered, but we also wanted to make it a bit challenging
Okay.
so that it's fun, challenging to play.
Okay.
Challenging.
Yeah.
Mm.
You may also like your timer as an example, right? Like you can still have a timer, but only put it on, let's say near the end, like when you're running out of time, right? So that really makes the pressure come on, right? Or you can still have a timer, but it's not always showing. It's showing like just near where you're, okay, you've got a minute left. You've got, to get through the level, and now it's giving you pressure, that kind of stuff. That is okay to do as well, right? So you can consider putting it on and off later. The mini map, turning it on and off, we talked about. Pausing and loading. I don't mind the button on the left, which is the pause button. I might make it smaller, right? Because it's taking up quite a bit of space on your view. And then that whole progression banner thing in the middle, you have to have a reason for that to be there. Like, what is that for? Is it, if it's for progression, that's okay, but it's if that's your score, and that's fine too. How do you get score? By picking stuff up?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So just minor things. Let's progress. So let's progress in the back, and I don't want to keep going too much more, but I'm just trying to help with suggestions, right? Because I want to make your game awesome, right? As more. I'm not trying to cut you down in any way, right? It's just really just trying to make it so that, okay, this is where we actually see the character, which is pretty cool. I always found that when you have traps, when you're trying to jump over traps as the camera's coming towards you, that's really challenging. Like this area here would be really challenging to play. Keep going, especially if you're speed running it. And then you come to the bus. Okay. So how did the bus get here? I'm just asking the question, right? I mean, I know it's a silly question, but I want you to tell me, how did the bus get there? Right?
Didn't they mention that this is didn't they mention this was supposed to be sort of like a dream world? And
Okay. Still, there should be some logic in the bus. No. unless you have wings on this bus, as an example, I just don't see how that is, right? So, and I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying people will ask the question, why is the bus there, right? And maybe you want to swap out the bus with something else, make it a helicopter, make it a, something that makes sense, a speedboat, or whatever to get to the next level. If you're going to make a next level for this thing, maybe you get in the bus and the bus drives off. There's another part of the level that
it's all in a dream, and he thinks he's late for school until he finds the bus. So it's not really taking him anywhere. It's not like really there.
Okay. Just asking the questions, like, why are the bus there?
I'm guessing the bus is like signifying him waking up. The bus is like waking. When he wakes up, enters the bus.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just asking questions, just to get a sense of it. But otherwise, I mean, again, it's a platformer. I think things that you've accomplished that are really great. It's a platformer. Your character is able to jump and move and everything else. These are good things. You have obstacles in the platformer. You have hazards. All the things that I've given you, you have. You've just got to put them together so that they work, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's not just meeting requirements, but also how they all kind of band together to make it a cohesive game that's fun to play, right? So that's the kind of stuff you have to worry about from now on, right? So any other thoughts or questions from anybody else? So that's it. Mary, thank you so much for presenting today. I know that you, and again, I know you're in the hot seat when I'm asking all the questions, and I'm not trying to tear you down. I'm just trying to, for everybody here, by the way, I'm just trying to give you guys just some questions to consider for you and your design, right? What can we do to make it better, right? What things are missing, things that maybe you haven't considered, and those kind of things. But that's where I'm going with it more than anything else, right? So just hopefully that helped, and it didn't, So think about those kind of things. But otherwise, lots of great elements. But again, this is for everyone. Thank you for that. You can stop sharing now. I just wanted to kind of end off today because I know we're kind of almost timing out here anyway. That took a long time, and this is great for you guys to have less groups again than more groups. Because when we have less groups, then we have more time to give you feedback and all that kind of stuff. It won't be the same at all for the other groups because you can see that there's quite a few to go through. So we're going to go much quicker through the last part because there's a lot to talk about. I'm still going to focus on the things that we talked about already. So guys, if you're for the next group, for people that are not here, I'm going to go and basically talk about UI. I'm going to talk about gameplay. I'm going to talk about character. I'm going to talk about camera. All this the same stuff that I've basically talked about with you guys. It's a list for me to go through to say, have they these basic things? How is it looking in terms of your checkpoint? So that's what I'm going to be doing here with the next group. But just considerations that I wanted to go through with you guys before I end the day, right? Stuff that we talked about, takeaways that we so far have discussed, right? Simplify. That's something that I would think about. Simplify your level. Think about ways of reducing textures or removing items that are, even though they look neat in the level, is there a way to put items in the level that are going to improve performance as opposed to slow things down? Okay, your interface. Can I look at the interface and can I reduce elements in the interface? Or move things around, or only show the parts of the interface when I require them as a player, as opposed to all the time. Okay, things like toggleable parts, like the minimap. Can I toggle it on and off somehow when I want to look at the minimap? If I want to know where to go next, for example, for a complicated level, or to get a pickup or something like that. That's where the minimap in a 3D platformer might work best, as an example. Again, this is for everybody, not for the last group. So we talked about UI. We talked about camera and how the camera can hurt or help when it comes to a 3D platformer. And with Mark's example, when we were looking at his level, how the camera can get occluded sometimes, and how having too much control of the camera, or what Vince was talking about, which is vertical control as opposed to just lateral control, can really make your camera actually a hindrance, not a help. depending on how it goes. So sometimes automatic camera controls, similar to what you had in your game, Mary, right, which might be easier because your camera's at a fixed state and it makes the gameplay so the character doesn't have to worry about that too. There's another thing to worry about, right? So those kind of things that we talked about. And we also talked about things like pathfinding and enemies for Sam's game, with the idle tower defense, right? So how do we do pathfinding? How do we do we use waypoints? How do we apply enemies properly, and how can they make the game more challenging? And those kind of things. So these are all things to consider when you're doing gameplay. And these are all things that we've talked about in every game for the most part since we've been together, right? So, but the further thing that you have to worry about more than anything else is how is it going to work with mobile? Mobile is just going to make it that much more constrained, right? In terms of memory, performance, controls, because you're going to be using touch controls a lot of times compared to your mouse and keyboard. How is that going to affect performance? All those kind of things, and gameplay and fun at the end of the day, right? Which is really what we want out of this whole thing. All right, so that's my little ramble on about the stuff that we've talked about. Stuff that's due. Remember that your mid-semester checkpoint requires an updated GDD, right, which is due on Sunday, as well as a recording. So record your game similar to what we talked about today. So hopefully you're going to be able to record it in a different state than it is today in WebGL. WebGL is a requirement for this build. So make sure that you record your game so we can see it in WebGL. So that's part of your requirement to get that going. And then that's all due Sunday, and hopefully you guys are all good with that. Any questions for me? Yeah.
My group was taking a look at just in our dedicated Discord right now.
Yep.
We don't need to describe any of the code for this project
demo
video.
No.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking for that. I'm not looking for describing any code, right? Because that's not that's not the exercise, right? The exercise here is like, show me your stuff, talk about your game, discuss your progress, show me your information on your Trello board, that kind of stuff, right? Like, how is it going? What's left?
Okay.
Basically it's a progress report with a bit of a release update, because basically you've gone from a first playable release to a release that actually has more gameplay and more elements, right? So those kind of things. Okay.
Right. All right. Sounds good.
All right. And yeah, anything else from me, guys? Right.
That's about it.
Mary, are you still there? Or did she run away? Yeah. Oh, there you are. Can you stick around after? I just want to talk to you.
Sure.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sam. You're the best when it comes to that. Amazing presentations. I think things that I've seen. That's one thing I wanted to also mention. Sam did a great presentation. Mark and Mirara, I think did awesome. And I think it's it speaks volumes to the amount of presentations you've done since the first day we were together in first year. And it's amazing how you guys have all progressed. So thank you so much for doing that stuff. Looking forward to your game progress as we go forward, and the additions of all the stuff that you're planning to make this game a great game for your portfolio. Right. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to stop recording on YouTube now, and then I'll take questions and that kind of stuff.
Okay, people starting to leave right now. Okay, I just want